Alrighty, we're back for another exciting episode of Trimet Board meeting. I have a little more time because I'm not putting my dispatch calls on the blog anymore, which is pretty time consuming. So I've stopped using my blog for dispatch, and I've gone back to the way I've been doing it for a long time, which is using the Twitter for the dispatch, and it saves a lot of time. And I actually have time to read, to watch a continuation of the Trimet Board. So far, it's been completely non-eventful, not exciting, nothing important, nothing unusual. It's the same old story. Oh, look at how great we are, and and Kelsey's done all this, and he's listened to that, and everything is great, and we have all these great things happening, and blah, blah. His delivery is flat. I find his delivery flat. And so that's, there's nothing going on here that's new yet. So let's keep watching and see if something comes up that's new.
Satisfied with the availability?
I received a couple of comments where it wasn't the right time in the right community. Some people felt it really did work. I would suggest one was right after the long weekend in July, or the long weekend, the June holiday, and that was the lowest turnout one. So I think we clearly didn't get that right. Even though people had signed up, what people had committed to, we had a website.
And let's repeat some of the concerns about this. There's no documentation for anybody to see about this. They didn't publish anything about it. All we know is that he went to some meetings with some people in some locations, and he listened. The transportation czar. This is the man, the holy grail of Portland transportation. Doug Kelsey listened to the serfs, and that's all we know. We don't know what he actually heard because they don't show us. And as usual, I'm not impressed when they don't show us anything other than they tell us what's going on. They don't show us what happened. I mean, they could have published minutes. They could have wrote down what were the comments. I would have liked to hear that. But they don't have that. I don't know. It's not available. If it is, I don't know where, because they don't publish this information anywhere. So we don't know. All it is yes, I did this and I did great, and everybody's great.
Site sign up, so it all showed a pretty long list of, I think it was like 30 or 40 something people to show up, but I think the weather was pretty good after a long weekend and we missed. So I think you can never do enough of this. This is where we actually engaged ERCO to say, can you help us?
Who's
what
ERCO?
Do you feel the community needs are? So we really played off what their lead was in a lot of cases. So I think we have to be careful, and I think for me, one of the things, doing one on a weekend I think would be helpful as well. We did it on the weekend.
Yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't it? I mean, if you really want to hear the public, you have to be available when the public is available. And that's not during a weekday, especially not at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock. I've always found these a bit disingenuous. Oh, okay. All right, well, we just have Neal Berlin calling in. And hello, Neal, you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
I was just finishing up commenting on someone else's post.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and so thanks for calling. I just got started, and do you have any comments, Neal?
The torture side in there, man. What the hell? I don't know. I can never understand what these. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, do you have any comments so far about the last meeting? I was saying I've already started the presentation here, so you're coming in midstream. I was commenting that so far we haven't heard anything new or different. It's him saying that he did this, that, and the other, and everything is wonderful. And so, what are your comments from the last episode?
Well, I think the two new board members after that meeting were taken aside and said, "What the hell are you two doing?"
Well, the meeting's not over.
We got lunch appointments to go to. These questions and queries that you're asking are frivolous.
Well, we're still on the same meeting. The meeting hasn't ended. We're still on the same meeting.
Oh, okay. Maybe they haven't been taken out yet to the shed.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything extraordinary. Did you see something extraordinary? I don't remember it. The last.
No, the only thing was extraordinary is what you said, Al. Is that all of a sudden the two new members were not complete bumps on the log.
Yeah, right. They're putting.
And I've been watching these as long as you have, and more fingers and toes to count.
Yeah.
And I just really can't recall any board. Well, the only time was with those two girls last month.
The two.
I mean, if those two young ladies who challenged the statistics.
Oh yeah, wasn't that great?
Team up with these two new board members. Mr. Warner might not be sitting too comfortably.
Oh yeah, right. That's right. He did terminate that discussion, didn't he? He put a kibosh on it. They were asking questions. Yes.
Yeah, he cut them off.
Yeah.
Remember?
Right. That's right.
Abruptly and I think curtly.
Oh yeah. He was not happy. There's no doubt about it. And that's the problem going forward, is that it's Warner's the still the head guy. So when Brown made a couple of replacements, it didn't really change anything because the guy that's still running the show is Warner. But yeah. I think you're right. I think it's interesting that they've already participated, even though they're brand new. All right. Well, let's keep going here. Okay. Let's get it moving.
Days. I think the weekend would be.
Okay. Okay. So Kelsey's talking here about how a weekend would be nice for him to have his little town halls. Yeah. Right.
By the way, is there a way I can see what you're doing?
Well, no, because it'd be hard because I have to put. Can I put you on the camera? Maybe. I guess I could.
Okay, go ahead.
I can put you on the camera, but
open that accessibility.
We can try that. Can you hear it at all?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear them?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I certainly appreciated the listening session that I was.
Okay, here's
and I thought we had a good.
Here's another new board member.
And it's always good to hear from your bosses on what you're doing right and what you could improve on. And so I thought it was a good listening session. And we also talked about going forward and perhaps having more listening sessions at different locations.
So one thing I was going to say is I see Kelsey is doing the minority hiring here. I see. I think he's hired two black executives, right? The Henderson guy, who was the mayor's buddy, and the guy
from California who was head of maintenance.
Right. So there's two black managers, and then we have these board. Like this guy's black, and the other guy is Latino, and she's Asian. So we see a move to elevate minorities. And I don't know if that, I've always been suspicious of identity politics and what they really mean. An elite black man is still an elitist, okay? But I guess I get, what are your feelings on that?
Well, I think the way we're going, considering that Trimet is spending money to have those two consultants come in and review the conduct as far as minority hiring. We should not disappoint those consultants.
Yeah. So he's moving on that for sure. Kelsey's doing something about that. That I don't know whether that's going to have any positive effect or not, but we're just starting, so we'll see down the road. So okay, let's keep.
I think it has no great effect. Mr. What is it? The gentleman who just left the board,
Mr. Bethel.
Who is the one with the walker?
Yeah, Bethel. We can't hear you.
Mr. Bethel, who just left the board.
Uh-huh.
A couple of times, and there was one other black board member who left before him, raised during the open session on contracts about minority hiring, and was not pleased that the minority hirings were only subcontractors.
Uh-huh.
And if you recall at that meeting, which I think was about a year ago, McFarland called up some young guy who's ahead of the bidding process to explain it to him, and when he got done, Bethel says, "It's worse than I even thought. I don't think you made anything clear except your bias."
Yeah, Bethel was kind of a double-edged sword. Sometimes he was an elite apologist, and other times he actually was an activist.
I don't know whether it was due to his health, but he never had followed through with great vigor.
No.
And I don't know whether he realized that the power structure from where he sat did not rest with him, but with Mr. Warner.
Yeah. Check.
So I'm encouraged by that, and I think it's going to continue to work well.
Sorry.
Okay.
One more question.
Okay.
So again, page 5.
That's as high as I can
Goal
put it.
Commission update to the PSU equity analysis of Trimet's fair and code enforcement activities. And then it says that the analysis is complete and staff are currently reviewing the findings. This is around some of the equity analysis work that PSU is doing for us. Will there be a public presentation about the findings?
I was just commenting about the fact that they do all these things, but they never tell the public what they found. They never present us with the feedback. For example, Kelsey goes out and does these town halls, but we don't out here in the world get to see exactly what the feedback was. He just talks about it on the board, and that's what she's asking about here. So let's see what she says.
Can you talk a little bit more about how that information will get relayed back to the board?
Sure. Yeah,
as well as the community.
Yeah. So what happened? We actually conducted this back in 2015. It was our benchmark case, and so the work has been completed, and similar to that one, which was presented to the board and its findings, we'll do the same thing here.
Do you know when?
Haven't set the date on the agenda yet,
Okay.
but it'll be probably the next couple board meetings.
Yeah, that's not much of an answer.
Any other comments? I guess I just want to thank you, Doug, for your effort. I know you put a lot of hours.
Here we go again. It's just not a minute passes where they're not congratulating the staff.
One of the things that I have noticed is that all the board members, you never see their backs. and the reason for that is, if you did, you would see the back of all the men's coats are just absolutely worn thin from the slapbacking of how wonderful they are from their fellow board members.
Yeah, that's another reason why. You'll never hear them say anything negative. That's why we know this is scripted bullshit, because nobody will ever take a critical tone. The board will never really criticize the staff ever. I've never, like Bethel made a comment now and then, but he never followed through on it. But generally speaking, it's just, you did a great job, thank you. That's all we. And here we have again.
Over the last 100 days with these, but I agree with your assessment. What I saw in the meeting I attended was the community and the people who attended were very impressed that we were out talking with them.
Oh, yeah.
They valued the interaction, and I thought they provided great input and suggestions.
Yeah, but we don't get to see the input.
I think following Director Gonzalez's comments, I think this is something we just need to continue to move forward on and in the future figure out how we best do this. But I think these should be an integral part of our ongoing outreach and engagement with the community. Yeah. So thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. And thanks to our team, because it takes the whole team to pull these off, not just myself.
Thanks to the
I might be the person you see up there, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes trying to help, including our partners at Urco. And one comment I should have made, perhaps, and I didn't, is out of these meetings are a whole list of secondary meetings that are coming. Not formal with a microphone and an aluminum chair at the front of a room, but there's a lot of other meetings that have been that have come out as a result of it that I'm participating in directly. Actually, in some cases, going up to see the issue. So one example, an employee raised said, "I've got a problem with a grease gun." So I said, "Well, the meeting's now set up. Let's go down on the shop floor and see the grease gun and what the challenge is, and try to understand the issue." Internally as well as externally. So meetings with a number of community members, and one I even spoke to just last night on is a fellow of one of the public sessions. So those things, if they're work, they don't stop. They continue. In fact, in some cases where we've had one instance of a show.
Yeah.
I didn't know Kelsey in his spare time was a proctologist. I mean, he showed the guy how to use the grease gun.
Shelter where it was a significant drug issue. The shelter itself was a drug zone. So we've actually worked with the police. We thought even came to the conclusion that, gee, do we have to remove the shelter in the public forums? I think Dr. Bowman, you were at that. Was it remove the shelter? The update on that one is we've actually done a police sting and taken away the sort of the point drug person, and so we may not need to remove the shelter as an example, but as an example to our policing partnerships behind the scenes, we zoomed in and try and help solve an issue, which was an issue for somebody.
That's interesting. I would like to know the specifics of what he's talking about. Where was the shelter? When was it done?
Yeah, right. And again, it's non-Pacific.
Right. We don't.
All his anecdotes are non-Pacific.
Yeah. Right. That's what bothers me about all this stuff. They never give you details. They give you, we did this, but we don't know when and where and how. It's just, we had the police bust the guy who's selling drugs at the shelter. Well, it's funny because, I listen to the dispatch every day pretty much, and it's just constant, the shelters are zones of the dispossessed, the people that are dispossessed in the society use the bus shelters as their, living rooms, I guess. And nothing ever changes, and the police don't know what to do with those people, because they can tell them to get out of the shelter and they're back 10 minutes later. So, that's a society problem, and I hear it every day. I don't know. I wish I would know what he's talking about, because I would be able to connect.
Well, you just presented an opportunity to expand management. How many shelters are there? If we had a shelter manager for every shelter, a shelter manager monitor.
There you go. We can. That sounds a definite position.
Things would probably be a lot better.
Yeah. Right.
They're equipped with rubber gloves, a picker-upper little gadget, and a trash bag.
Right. I hear you.
A user of the system, but they were a resident across the street. So, thank you. Okay. Okay, moving right along. The low-income fare and citation process, as you know, we're forging ahead on two significant initiatives this week, delivering on the promise we made to our riders and the community at large. First, we will launch the low-income fare program. It's been in a testing phase, or beta, if you will, for the last several weeks.
A testing phase.
In the first 72 hours of launching the beta test, nearly 250 people applied to be part of the test group. This is terrific news. So there's a lot of awareness out there, and we need help, as you know, in a beta test to help hone it. The program allows for individuals, as you know, to earn up to 200% of the federal poverty level to qualify for the Honored Citizen Card. We anticipate as many as 45,000 people could qualify as eligible in the first 3 years of this program. So we're very excited about this. I really want to credit John Gardner and his whole team for all the efforts behind
There they go again. Yeah, great job. Here they go again.
Well, here's something to ponder. With all the manpower, I'm not just talking about the physical implementation of the hardware, but just the manpower to implement it. You might as well just give these people the damn yearly pass.
Yeah.
And you would, but on top of it, here's the irony. One, it's not going to reduce fare evasion. Two, the real sockaroo is here are these low-income people working at low minimum wage jobs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Guess what? You're giving them a discount with your left hand. Trimet is giving them a discount with the left hand, and with the right hand, they're reaching into their pocket, into these people's wallet, every paycheck, and taking a percentage out.
Oh,
for the new Trimet tax.
Right, I totally agree. I look, I'm an advocate for fare free transit anyway. I think it should be free for everybody, you know. But this program might be helpful, but I mean, it would be more helpful if the passes were free for people that needed them. I mean,
I mean, how much in revenue dollars do we actually collect in a year? And then when you stop and think, okay, we got fare machines to maintain, we got hop cards, we've got the other fare app.
Yes.
And when you add up that cost, it is close to $100 million we've spent.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, is this really offset by revenue coming in yearly, let alone how does it pay for itself?
Yeah, it's not. That's, you know, my view on government has always been, this is not they don't care how much taxpayer money they spend. That's not part of the equation for government. It doesn't matter to them that it's not cost effective. It's a social control tool. It's a method of social control. And that's really what they're interested in. They're interested in social control. And that's really the problem, okay? Otherwise, they would be giving people that needed transportation a free pass. They wouldn't be reaching in their pocket for $1 a ride, you know? They would say, okay, you're poor, you need transportation, here's a free pass. But no, they won't do that. They want you to still pay. And if you don't follow their procedures and get caught, you'll still end up in court. You know, they're going to go on about how you don't have to go to court anymore, and I'm all in favor of that. But if you don't comply with the Trimet program, you end up in court anyway. So it didn't completely replace the court. It just added another level of bureaucracy to the system.
And at least 2 or 3 more managers.
Oh, yeah, at least probably more than that, you know, I'm sure.
In this. We'll take another really significant step in this implementation next week when we implement the new administrative citation process for fare evasion. The change also required, as you know, the action by the legislature in the 2017 session, so that is now behind us. I think all of you have in front of you the envelope that will be actually used to hand out with the public to help in the education process. So I want to thank Eric Van Hagen of our legal team as well in helping to design and implementing of this. So the feedback we received is actually quite positive, that it's actually educational as well as inside the pocket goes, should you get a citation. The goal is not to get one, but should you get one, it helps outline what options are available to you. So again, under the new law, individuals caught evading fare will have a 90-day window, resolve their citation, and keep it out of the criminal justice system.
Yeah, now see, if you don't do it that way, you're in the criminal justice system. So it's not really an alternative. It's just another level underneath the current level.
During the 90 days, they'll be given several options. They can pay the fine, perform community service, or enroll in the low-income fare program. Obtain a hop card, load it with at least $10 fare on it. The individuals who successfully complete one of those options will have their $175 citation dismissed.
What do you mean? Wait a minute. What do you mean $175? It's $75, I thought, for the first citation under this new program. It's $75.
I thought they lowered it 2 or 3 meetings ago.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 75 and then 100 and then 150 or something. So he's wrong. He says it's not 175 anymore. It's 75.
They will not get a court record, which we know can affect their ability to get a job. And I
never did. You know, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you have some insight into this that I'm lacking. The prior system was not a criminal system. The fare evasion citation was just a civil citation. Am I wrong? Was this? If you get
it was an administrative procedure, which, depending on the severity of what you were charged with, never got to.
It wasn't criminal. Something like impeding public transportation.
Trimet had an administrative hearing, and then it still could have been referred further up the ladder, depending on what happened at that administrative level.
Right, but I was under the impression that none of that was criminal. It's just plain fare evasion. I mean, impeding public transportation was a different story, or menacing, or whatever, but just the fare evasion part was not a criminal citation, and it wouldn't affect any of that. Of course, the state could take it out of your tax refund, or wouldn't give you your license, or stuff like that. But I was under the impression that but now all we've been hearing is, under the old system, if you got a fare evasion, you couldn't get a job and had a criminal record, and that just wasn't the way it was. That's not.
Well, if you didn't pay the fare under the old system, and you were issued a warrant for your arrest.
You were?
Yes.
That I didn't know. So you could be arrested if you didn't.
And a couple of fare inspectors told me that. A great story that many years ago, I think when the fare was 65 cents. That's how long ago. Okay. This guy got a ticket for not paying 65 cents. He wadded it up, threw it away, and we proceed 8 years later, right?
Yeah.
This gentleman is applying for a big position in New York City. He's accepted the position, and the new company is ready to hire him, and they're just doing the final background check. Guess what pops up?
Unpaid citation.
The citation from 8 or 10 years ago that he wadded up, never showed up to court, and they said, we can't hire you until you go back to Portland, Oregon and clear this up because there's a warrant out for your arrest.
Well, that's interesting that you say that because, when I'm listening to the radio, and the fare inspectors run into these people that are like fare evader, this is the 10th time they've been caught. Obviously, they're not arrested. They're still out here fare evading.
Right, and there's not much they can do. So what happens, this guy went to court. He showed up, the judge, the actual fare inspector who wrote him the ticket was still employed. Of course, he couldn't remember, but they found the original citation. There were his notes on the back describing the man, the whole incident, and the judge looks at him and says, you know, if you would have paid this, would have been saving a lot of time and effort on our end. He says, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to pay for the district attorney's time, my time, the court's, the fare inspector's time, $600.
Yeah, okay, right.
And not only that, this guy had to buy his own plane fare to and from to come back to settle. So it started with 65 cents.
I know that a unpaid citation is a credit type thing, but I didn't know. I didn't know you could actually get a warrant because you didn't pay a ticket.
I don't know whether that's still in effect today, but these people have gotten it. I have seen where the Beaverton police have caught someone, okay, who has not paid his fare, but it's now in Washington. It's now in Hillsborough. And he's never showed up to court. They really don't want to transport him from all the way from BC back to Hillsborough, especially at the end of their shift. Yeah. So they just give him another piece of paper.
Right. Yeah, my understanding is these fare evaders that are repeat evaders, they take them in, they book them, and then they release them. They don't keep them. They don't keep them in jail for this. I don't. As far as I know, anyway. I mean, I don't personally know when.
The only time they keep them is if they have, quote, other problems.
Right, other warrants or things like that,
which are a little more significant.
Right. All right.
Again, to thank the board for their leadership on this.
Here we go.
Select a job, rent a home, or serve
thanks. This is
in the military. Again, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you for your leadership.
We believe the system.
You understand, right, that this whole fare discount program was part of that tax grab. Right. It just this was the sop they gave to the citizens. They grabbed $3 billion right out of the pockets of Oregonians. No vote. They just said, here, we're getting a new tax.
Yeah, this idea has been around for a long time, and now that Trimet is swimming in money,
right?
They can act
like they're big heroes, and that's
they're big.
Yeah,
really generous.
Exactly. But that's why it needs to be brought out that this is only happening because they just grabbed us. $3 billion from the taxpayers without a vote.
Right, without a vote.
Without a vote, yeah. It's the only state that's done that I know of. I mean, they had votes in California, they had votes in Washington, they've had votes around the country, but not Oregon. They just took it, man. They just passed the bill, and here you go. You're going to give us $3 billion, and that's the way it is.
Is unique and does bring a real fairness and equity to the citation process, and now it's time to get it up and running and literally start next week.
Of course, if they were really serious about this, the first time fare evasion ticket should be $25. My opinion is it should be $25 first offense, $50 the second offense, $75 the third offense, and then $100 every other offense. Not $75, $100. The fine is not proportionate to the crime. Okay, even $75 is too high for a $2.50 ticket, as far as I'm concerned. That's once again.
It has. The fines have never, and the citations have never been a deterrent.
No.
And this is evident by a rising number of fare invaders.
Right.
So, no matter what you're doing, the fare evasion curve is going up.
Right. That's right.
Now, as item 7 of 8, we are almost getting close to the end here. I want to call up Patrick Price if I could, just to go over the quarterly performance
Okay,
of the organization.
are you familiar with this Patrick, what's his name, Presser? He came from Saudi Arabia. They used to call him Diaper Boy at Amtrak. We did a little research on him. He's the new head of the. I don't know. What is he? Is he the new Shelley Lomax? Who is this guy? What's the equivalent?
I cannot really. He's got a title, and I'm not sure of his responsibilities, because every time they fire someone, quote, let someone go, and they hire a replacement, here comes a new title.
Right.
And the only safe job at Trimet is not operators, it's not even management. It is the guy who draws the organizational chart. He not only has to get the right picture with the right name and the correct spelling, but the most difficult part of this guy's job is to draw lines of responsibility that go nowhere.
Really?
Has achieved. And I think you'll see some interesting news in it. So, Patrick, over to you.
Sure, absolutely. Good morning, Board President. Good morning, Board members. Again, my name is Patrick. I'm the Executive Director of Transportation.
Yeah, that's
so I'd like to review some highlights from the 2018 first quarter performance report. If you're following along in your packet, the information is also displayed graphically as well. I'm going to begin with vehicle and system reliability.
He's got quite the haircut. I know you can't see this, but when...
Yeah, I know what he looks like.
Yeah, he's got quite the haircut and beard here, so...
An area that might hear...
I mean, he could, if he ever wants to go and become part of the World Federation of Wrestling, he can fit in.
The Executive Director of Maintenance, Roland Hoskins, is very proud of with regard to his management team and his workforce. This time last year, bus and rail maintenance were right around the target for FTA, about 80%. I'm proud to say this year, at this time, we're exceeding 95% with
95% what? What was that? 95% what?
Significant jump when it comes to rail equipment maintenance. In fact, they've jumped 9 percentage points, and that's attributed to the leadership of Dan Blair, the Director of Rail Equipment Maintenance.
That's interesting he says that, because Max is constantly breaking down. I listen to this. There's one mechanical problem after another. So it doesn't compute to what he's telling us here. Doesn't compute to what I hear. It's not what I hear on the radio.
And the precise adjustments that they've made to their preventative maintenance plan on their Type 2 and Type 3 rail vehicles. Very impressive. And fare equipment remains stellar with 9/4 of 100%. So
what? 100%?
Outstanding to that group.
100%? I don't think so.
Is he referring to the fare machines?
I don't know what he's referring to, but he's saying 100%. Yeah, he said there's not 100%. We hear about it. I hear the shit, okay? I don't know what he's actually talking about here.
I mean, even Ivory soap is not 100%.
You're right.
The mean distance between failure trend is quite impressive as well. Again, if you're following along, that's page 7 of the graphs. There's been a sharp climb in 2017. Max is up 62.3% compared to the previous year. So what does that mean for our Type 2 rail vehicles? That's around 50,000 miles. For our Type 5 vehicles, that's about 48,000 miles. And again, Dan Blair is working closely with his team on some overhaul programs with the Type 3s, Type 4s, in areas of inverter faults and friction brakes.
I hear those all the time on the radio, all the time. Okay, so I don't know where he's getting his statistics, but it's every day you hear multiple problems, especially with friction brake faults.
Bus is equally impressive, up 63.9% compared to the previous year. So now they're exceeding 15,000 miles.
I don't believe him. Okay, I really don't. I mean, I wouldn't be able to say that if I wasn't actually listening to the operation daily. And
actually, what you would need to do to get an understanding, and even though I know some of the mechanics down there, is actually talk to one of them and ask them what is really going on.
Yeah, I don't believe it. Okay, I've been listening to the scanner for quite a few years now, and I haven't noticed any improvement in the breakdown ratios. I mean, I don't keep track of it. I only listen to maybe 5% or less of the calls, and there's just as many breakdown calls as I've ever heard. So even more maybe. So I don't believe them. I don't believe them. I just don't.
For mean distance between failures. And there is a noteworthy collaboration that just happened between transportation and bus maintenance. And I'd like to thank Director Christina Babcock on the transportation side and Director Ed Bennett on the bus maintenance side. So there's been this collaboration between functions in our operations command center.
Oh, yeah.
And even though it's early days, they've been able to reduce the amount of bus trades that happen each day by about 50%.
Do you believe? I don't believe him. I just don't believe. I don't believe him because this is not what I'm hearing. Okay.
It's not what I hear on some of the Trimet operators' Facebook pages. Yeah,
and it's not what I hear in the real world,
right?
Which is the scanner.
That we've cut down on trades. No, we don't have any another bus to give you. You're just going to have to live with the bus with no AC and the heat pumping out.
Yeah, I just hered that today. Whole bunch of them, man.
There is no trade. So now there's no hash mark of there wasn't a trade. We don't have to put a hash mark down.
Yeah. I don't. We. This is the typical Trimet board. There's no way we out here in the world can verify what he's saying. We don't know that. They're going to show us a chart and say this is what it is. But unless there's an independent analysis, we don't know if it's true or not. I mean,
and these board members are sitting here watching a PowerPoint presentation and going, I'm sure they're saying, well, I guess it's got to be true. He won.
Yeah, right. He wouldn't lie, right? No.
Direct impact on our customers' experience. So these are buses that do not have to get taken out of service, do not have to return to the garage. So positive impact on-time performance, positive impact on our customers' experience, and also from an operational efficiency perspective, very important because those are reduced what we would call deadhead miles or miles that are not in revenue service. So we're very proud of that team and that partnership.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Next, we look at service delivery. Again, on-time performance. If you're looking, that's on page 9.
By the way, they don't have enough bus operators. They're canceling runs like mad. This is recent. Okay, they don't have enough operators. They cancel lots of runs. They don't report on how many runs they've canceled during this last month. They don't tell you those statistics.
Bus is up 6.2%, so we are, at 87.4% compared to the previous year. Max is up 5%, which is at 90.1% compared to the previous year. We recently had a celebratory event on the rail side of the business because our core objectives, safety, on-time performance, customer experience. We hit internal goals for all 3 of those, so we had a nice celebratory event for the management team and the workforce, so everybody was very happy for that.
The management team.
Just to give you an example.
Well, he did say the workforce.
He did.
Yeah.
In the past, what they usually gave to the operators?
No. What?
Box of bananas.
Get out of here.
Actually, one time Fred put out 2 or 3 boxes of bananas and had a sign with his face on it, which it said underneath, "My heroes." I mean, I really can't make stuff like this up. You know, we had to peel the bananas ourselves, but and there were no directions for them of how to do this. But
all right, let's get going.
So both facilities now on rail for the 365-day average exceed 95% for on-time pullout out of the maintenance facility.
That might be believable. What do you think? 90? I don't know about. Is that? I have no way to know if that's.
What he's saying is,
and they pull out,
and he's phrased it just so that it is true. The trains left the yard on time 90% of the time.
Or 95, you said.
Or 95%, okay?
Yeah, that's believable.
Now, that doesn't mean that 3 stops later, the damn thing broke down.
Right. That's right.
That doesn't mean that the operator who called in a defective seat or something the night before on that train got fixed. So he's sitting there for the next 8 or 10 hours, and he's going to call it in again.
Check. Right. That's right. And that I hear every day. I hear that kind of thing every day.
And so yes, he can truthfully say what he's doing. You know,
right. He has a phrase.
They're leaving the yard.
Okay, so that's believable then.
It just demonstrates all the hard work, whether you're on the maintenance side or the transportation side. It really takes precision to achieve that for such a long period of time. Wes is down 4.1% at 96%. Without going into too much detail, we did have 10 weeks of planned construction on Wes, so the results aren't necessarily a surprise. The type of work that we were doing there was basically removing contaminated ballast, mud, things of that nature. The end result is that we'll have better stabilized track, better drainage, so we should have improved performance.
Wes is the white elephant of Trimet, a money-sucking hole that doesn't provide much of any service to anybody. It never should have been built.
Right, and the only reason it was built was Trimet saw, oh my God, look at all that money. It's
That's right.
It's just laying right there. All we got to do is pick it up. We can have it in the bank for a while.
That's right.
We got a whole bunch of managers, everyone working, and no one ever thought, oh my God, we're going to actually have to operate it.
Right, and that directly affected bus service and brought a lot of cuts to bus service, and they don't talk about that. And it's a white elephant.
And not only that, the real scandal that never got aired via the news very well or explained was that Trimet went and bought the Colorado.
The rail car, the company.
The rail car company.
They bailed them out. Right, I remember that.
Yeah, and the Fed said, you can't use that money to go do that. Well, if they didn't do it, they weren't going to get any cars.
Yes, I remember.
And the cars that they got were a piece of junk. And actually, I think the cars the trains that they're actually using on West are 1957 modified, refurbished cars that came from Alaska.
Oh yeah, that's correct. And
the reason that they work so well overall is they have minimal computer components.
Right.
I mean, they installed what computer works they needed, but they don't have the kind of systems that Type 4s, 5s,
Right,
or
right.
2s and 3s have, which seem to be breaking down on a regular basis.
Right, that's right.
Moving forward in our wet seasons. In fact, OTP was starting to climb on West just before the construction period took place. Rides per revenue hour, bus has dipped 3.7% over the previous year. Max is down as well, 3.5% over the previous year. And West is down 11.1% over previous years. Mr. Kelsey has already talked a little bit about West, the fact that there's been a loss of employers in the corridor and that there is an aggressive marketing campaign underway. For total rides per revenue hour, we're down 4.1% over the previous year. Some of that is offset by increased service hours, somewhere in the range of about 1,400. And there were some, protests and just events that have taken place. Lastly, I'll close with operator support. This is another area that my peer, Harry Zapporta, and myself are very proud of the management team and the workforce. Bus collisions are down 26.2% over the previous year. And the noteworthy thing here, this is this is a sustained trend now since 2016. So the numbers are going very much in the right direction. I think last board meeting I mentioned the fact that our mayor strikes essentially account for 40% of some of our collisions, and we continue to see decline, another nice decline in that area this quarter due to the work that everybody's.
That's another questionable statement you just made. I hear mirror strikes a dozen a day. What I want to know is why don't they change the configuration of the mirrors? Because it's a continual problem, and they don't change that at all. And he's not discussing it. He's telling us that mirror strikes are down. I question him.
Well, and it's reasonable considering when you consider how much traffic is taking place and how slow traffic moves in Portland now, almost around the clock. Mm-hmm. The buses are not getting up to speed, so collisions should be down quite a bit.
You think so? I don't know.
I
guess you can't really fight.
The old joke about Robert Morris in New York City was, I didn't know I was out of gas until I got to the exit.
Doing around that. Max collisions are down 22% over the previous year. It is a slight uptick from the previous quarter, about 31%. We had a bike pedestrian incident and 2 vehicle incidents. And then from a complaint perspective, bus complaints are down 20.8% over the previous year. Max complaints are down 50% over the previous year. And again, you'll see 2 big drops in the category of service delivery complaints. This has to do with on-time performance, also has to do with pass-ups. I can tell you Mary Hill, on our management team on the transportation side, and John Bell, manager on the customer service side, have worked extremely hard to prevent repeats in these areas, and I think that's reflected in the sharp decline. So look forward to continued success in that area. For max rule violation,
I'd want to see independent. I'd like them to see them open up their records for outside audit. Because I just don't trust these people. I just don't.
Al, I was expecting my name to be mentioned here on Max. He said, and since Neal Berlin has left, the complaints have gone down 50%.
it pains me to say this, we're up 24% over the previous year.
What is?
Even though
What's
that
up
is
24?
a 6% decline over the previous quarter.
See, they're playing.
And
He's playing.
when
You see what he's doing here? He's playing numbers games here. He's got two sets of numbers: the monthly report, the monthly statistics compared to a year ago, and the quarterly statistics. And right, he's playing numbers games.
And he interchanges them so the board members.
Right.
I mean.
Right.
Who's on first? What's on second?
Right. That's right. That's what he's doing now. I can see it clearly. You know, one of them is a month compared to a year ago, and the other one's a quarterly. So it's not being honest. He's not being honest because he's not using the same frame of reference here.
I say that it pains me to say that. I can tell you, I can assure you, whether it's a director, a manager, assistant manager, operator, everyone is working extremely hard to drive down these human factor errors. Just to give you some examples, there's been considerable changes made to the training program in and around what we'll call route familiarization modules. We've adjusted the training so that there
is no training on route. They send operators out on bus routes. They have no idea where they're going. I see a dozen of them a day. Operators are getting lost. They don't know what they're doing. So I don't know what he's talking about.
I digress. When I first started, I got sent out, and they called me and said, Neal, you got to fill 19. I had, barely been working there a year, and I really had no idea. I just barely knew where the 19 started from downtown. But from that, it was, he said, well, don't worry. You'll pick people up along the way, and they'll help you.
Yeah, right. Well, they use the same philosophy today.
So the first two people I picked up didn't speak English. And the third person I picked up was blind. I got so lost in Laurelhurst, if you're familiar with the windy streets there, that I finally just stopped the bus, waited at a crossroads, and waited to see if there was a bus coming back the other way. So I knew this is where I must turn.
They're still doing that. That's what they're still doing. I hear it every day. Multiple times a day, operators don't know where they're going.
Is more hours spent operating on the rail network, and there are more observation rides for not just initial but ongoing support. So, for example, statistically speaking, we know if you're...
You do know that Trimet won't pay an operator to go learn a route. They won't pay you. They expect you to do that on your own time.
Right. And when I was about ready to go full-time and been on the board, a guy named Scott Cram and I got in the car on our days off with the route book and over the next 2 or 3 weeks drove 100 routes.
Oh, really? You did that on your own, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is a fundamental flaw with public transportation, is they won't pay to learn the route.
This was on our own time, making notes in the...
Right.
In the route books.
And until these technocrats decide we have to pay people to learn the route, that has to be part of the job, they're going to always have this mess up. And they are not paying people to learn routes. They expect that to be done on their own time, to this very day. It's always been that way forever, and they're not changing it. That's because it's neoliberal transit administration. They don't want to put out the money for you to learn the route.
You're an operator within the first 2 years, you're at a higher risk for experience a rule violation. So we have training supervisors who go out and perform observation rides and provide support to those operators each quarter for the first 2 years as a rail operator. In addition to that, our rail supervisors do targeted safety contacts at areas that are identified as high-risk areas, and our rail controllers from our operations command center also do targeted safety announcements during high-risk times.
Oh, yeah, I hear that. Yeah.
Just as from a teamwork approach.
Have you heard these? They have these little new Macs. They're doing these like fun facts things. Have you heard those? They're doing fun facts when they're making these safety announcements. They throw in a little fun fact or something silly. Have you heard any of that? I've been hearing them.
I haven't heard about it.
Yeah.
It was instituted after I was left.
Yeah, it's going on now.
But I'm reading on in the forums online that umpteen million times a day, every controller is coerced into announcing a red light means stop. And reinforcing certain things. Although they are changing some of the procedures for train orders, for on call boards, and the procedures that are going on, and that is actually a good thing, which will affect the number of rule violations, because an operator is so overwhelmed visually and physically, let alone trying to remember exactly what is taking place at times only told to him verbally moments before he enters the
I don't know how people do that job at all. I would never be able to handle that job. It's just I would never be able to do that. Okay.
We are also in the process of implementing a competency management system. So that's a program that we have to control and reduce risk.
Yes.
These are proactive.
And by the way, competency management system. That's got to be one of the a great new oxymoron.
That's scary stuff there. I mean, I don't know what.
Competency. That's like military intelligence.
Right. That's like deep state Trimet trying to probe your mind for things. I don't know what they have in mind, but I've seen the letter about it.
The memo is if you see my posts, I put a post on this on my. It has little catchphrases and words. Our intent, we mean to, we reached out. The bottom line is, this is a new way for us to make sure when we need to insert shoe leather.
When we want to come down on you, we want more ammunition. That's what it means.
Assessments that are being done that allow for timely feedback to our operators to address any at-risk behavior, but also any competency issues. And we are at the early stages of implementing a peer-based safety observation team. So everyone's equally excited about that. Basically covers.
So I love this, peer-based. So this is a threat to the union, which has been going on blue. Turn in your fellow operator.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly what that means.
Wow.
Don't go up to him privately. No. Write it up.